Music is a tool that can be used to convey emotions without ever speaking a word. It's usually just a passive background element that doesn't directly affect the objective or message of whatever piece of media it's in, but that doesn't mean it's not significant. It's actually quite the contrary. A good background piece or soundtrack can push any media into realms beyond, and a lack thereof, or bad soundtrack, God forbid, can just do the opposite and make it absolutely terrible. I've actually wanted to make a video similar to this for a while, but what actually got me to sit down and write this script is ironically just mindlessly scrolling through social media. I kept seeing random videos and clips. I just had the absolute worst choice of music that I could ever think of. Well, maybe that's a little bit harsh, but there was seemingly no thought put into the choice of the song. It's almost as if the creator just hit shuffle on a playlist or used whatever that was playing at the time, they made it, and just, use that because it sounds good. They like it, so they'll put it. This is not an issue for most people, but I am not most people. I am a deity of creation, and I say that this habit is dumb and stupid and bad, therefore I am right. This is going nowhere. Background music specifically obviously has a lot of traits, but I like to break it down into 4 different categories that I would want for different purposes. The theme, the energy level, the emotion, and the direction. Keep in mind these are just 4 categories I consider and make sense to me. They're not really, there's no science behind it or anything, there's no studies, they're just 4 categories that I pulled randomly from my brain. Theme is kind of like the genre, the instruments that are being played, the kind of setting you could picture yourself listening to the song in. Like something like this is a desert theme, this could be a snowy setting, stuff along those lines. This is where most of your variety will come from, and that can be very important, or not really at all important, depending on what it is. Things like movies or video games with heavy plot or stuff, those are more reliant on themes, while just random short clips don't really benefit at all. I mean, you don't want it to be jarring either for the short clips, but I think describing music works best with examples, especially considering that I have no in-depth knowledge or education on scientific music terms or even how to play an instrument, and most of you probably don't either, so lots of examples will be had in this video. An example of an OST, or OST stands for Original Soundtrack. I'll probably be saying that a lot, so just keep that in mind. OST is Original Soundtrack. An example of an OST that is virtually perfect is A Hat in Time. It's one of my favorite soundtracks and also games of all time, so I'll try to keep it brief so I'm not here all day. The soundtrack just sounds amazing and fits the set pieces perfectly. You get plopped down in Mafia Town, you get some Russian-inspired shit, go down to the beach and the instruments will shift into something that is exceptionally more beach-y. Come back when it's raining and oh boy, what do you know, it sounds like rain. Yeah, you're gonna hear a lot more than I could describe it. It's pretty obvious when it's done right. So here's an example of a song with poor theming. I want you to try and guess what setting the song is played over. Well, what do you think? Did you guess selecting which one of your friends will be participating in Russian roulette and very possibly die? That was an excerpt from Lisa the Painful RPG, which is a game that uses cacophony to reinforce negative emotions in such a way that makes the OST legendary despite not being traditionally good. Don't believe me? Well, try this one on for size. Okay, I'm sorry, that was a little mean. I really do think that the use of songs and sounds are unappealing on purpose is a trait that is heavily underrated. Yeah, it doesn't sound very good, but oh boy does it ever sound. Negative emotion is just as, if not more, important than the positive ones when writing a good narrative, so why not use sounds that invoke heavy negative emotions other than just basic sadness or melancholy? Why not pure unfiltered fear and anxiety, blind bloodlust, hate, and uneasiness? These are all things that are so rare to come across in most genres other than horror, but horror kind of has its own rules entirely, so we're not going to get into that here. Alright, we're getting sidetracked here. This is beyond the scope of the video. Back to those categories I was talking about. The remaining 3 categories I find are much more interconnected and less obvious right away. Energy level, or tension, is basically how energetic the song sounds, which is easy enough. If there's a lot of fast and or expressive movement going on screen, you're gonna want something high energy. However, the energy level will often change during a song, so you gotta make sure that you just either use a certain part of the song or make sure that the tension of the song builds and releases at the same time as the stuff on screen, or, just get a very stable song if the tension doesn't need to change. Of course, this is much harder time in stuff like games when the player has control, and there are ways that you can do this, but that's way outside the scope of this video, or my qualifications in general. Basically just avoid sharp changes in tension if it doesn't match the video, and keep the general energy level around the right place. I think this is something that's pretty easy to tell what I'm talking about, but here's some examples just in case. Emotion is another somewhat obvious one, but I like to break it down into either pro-listener or against listener, or pro-protagonist or against protagonist. If the listener is supposed to feel like they or the protagonist is in control of the situation or has the advantage, that's pro, and if it feels like the situation is out of their control and working against them, that's against, obviously. Of course, this is a very, very simple version of it. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance and complexity than just those binaries, but with just the basics, we can stick to them. And of course, just like tension, emotion can flip mid-song. It's as if the heroes are struggling and strategizing, and everything starts falling into place and flips back in their favor, allowing them to overcome the challenge put in front of them with flying colors. Now, direction is one that may not be intuitive at first. It's essentially the objective of the music, if there is one at all. If it sounds like there's a goal in mind that the music or the protagonist is trying to reach, or if the destination is more important than the journey, or if you're just meant to exist and vibe to it. Once again, this is not something that's easy to describe or tell what I'm talking about, but hopefully some examples will help a bit. Hopefully now you have a rough idea of what I'm trying to get at. Analyze your video or clip or scene or whatever, and try to match the traits. A random clip of a car driving along in an empty street can be contextualized in so many different ways, and the right music will help convey that so much. What if it's a race against the clock to reach the destination in time? What if it's just a casual road trip or a day out amongst friends? What if it's a broken family having to uproot themselves and abandon everything they've known? I'll leave you off with some random tips. First off, do not have lyrics in the music if there's other dialogue that is supposed to be heard. The background music should be complementing the important action, not fighting for the spotlight against it. You should always understand the copyright restrictions of your platform before making anything, but in general, video game music is safe. I mean, so is completely original compositions, but that's not accessible to most people, so video game music is probably your best bet. Not all of it is safe, keep in mind, but most is. So if you know what a game is about, you can generally find the music if you're looking for. If you don't personally know many OSTs, you can ask for help. There's plenty of nerds out there who will listen to a lot more game music than you do. You should also be aware of when to not put music, because sometimes no music works better, particularly in short clips and serious focus moments. You should also keep in mind that certain songs have been used in certain ways enough times that a general audience will expect something from the song and be turned off when it's something else. This is mostly for memes, or songs that have been sort of claimed by bigger content creators and as outros or sponsor reels or whatever. Of course, no one expects you to know every single one of these associations, but you should have enough awareness of your own audience to know some major ones. For example, I should be carefully using this song in the background because my general audience is now going to expect a blue screen wipe as soon as I finish this sentence, which would be the end of the video. I, of course, am not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to have a piece of text fade in that says "See you soon."